This is Seth McMahill from Nintendo of America.
Hey, this is Kristen from KiwiboxDotCom. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Hi, Kristen. It's nice to meet you.
Great. Nice to meet you, too. So I'm just going to ask you, first and foremost, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your job, if I can.
Sure, absolutely.
So you are the localization specialist for Pokemon games. Could you kind of explain that a little bit?
Well, so what I do precisely is basically localization itself is the act of basically taking a game that was developed in Japan and making it feel like it was developed in the States for an American audience. And what that entails basically is, obviously the translation of the text, which I don't do personally, but I will go through and I'll do rewrites on it. Also, instruction manuals, naming characters is something that we also do, locations, towns, marketing support and everything like that. So basically, we just take a game that was developed in Japan and, we make sure that we get any cultural things that are kind of weird and switch those out. For example, there was a game a while ago that the Pokemon characters were on a beach and they were actually smashing a watermelon, which, in Japan is kind of a summer tradition, but, in the States, nobody would know what that means, so we swapped it out and replaced it with a piñata. So that's kind of just a quick summary.
Oh, cool. And what kind of major ways are kind of Japanese and American audiences different? Is there any kind of major kind of social things that you see that is kind of a trend?
There's the way that that characters will talk to each other is a bit different. In Japan they have a kind of I don't want to say a class system, but there's different ways of addressing people, whether they're younger than you, equal to you, or older than you, or, if they're your boss or your subordinate and things like that. There's different ways of speaking to them, whereas in English, it's not so much of a distinction between the two. And then also just mainly it's the way the characters interact or talk with each other is kind of the main difference. And then also, it's also, a social type thing and just, there's some things in Japan that just aren't, as commonly said over here, or things over here, said that wouldn't quite be taken as well over here, and we'll just switch those out, and make sure that we aren't offending anybody or anything like that, because Pokemon is such a large brand, we really have to be very cautious about what we say in the game and how the characters act in the game and everything like that, because it's seen by so many different people and played by so many kids.
Oh yeah, definitely. What's is there any kind of one thing as far as language goes that you have to change the most often?
Not necessarily. It really runs the gamut. It really depends on the game. With Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time, and Explorers of Darkness, there wasn't so much of it that we had to change because it's, you actually are the Pokemon and it's the Pokemon talking to each other. There's really not any of that, the class system or the different ways of addressing people that you would find in the core series like Pokemon Diamond or Pokemon Pearl. So there really isn't any major one thing. It really depends entirely on the game.
Gotcha. And when did you kind of start, how did you get involved with the Pokemon series?
I actually started at Nintendo as a contractor back in '99, and I was actually working in testing. So that's almost 10 years ago. Wow. Time flies. And I was working late one night, voluntary overtime. I had actually missed my ride home, so I figured, hey, I'll stick around. And we were working on a Pokemon project at that time, so I was really just a tester on it. But the localization manager had just lost his coworker and was looking for somebody to kind of help fill in temporarily on the game. And it was just a random, a random bit of luck that he came after hours and I was still there and just kind of pulled me down to see how I would do on it, and apparently they liked me, and I've been doing it ever since. So.
Awesome. Wow, that's quite a chance meeting.
It really was, and that's what happens when you work voluntary overtime, apparently. Good things could happen to you. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's really, that's how it came about, and I've just been, I love it. I've been doing it ever since.
Cool. Do you get to travel to Japan a lot for that?
Yeah. Not a whole lot. Average maybe once a year or so. It's really important for us to have really good relations with the developers and everything like that. And then on games like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, we want to ensure that that we're all going in the same direction. That the storyline is going to feel as epic in the States as it does in Japan. And so even though we can have video conferences and we can talk over the phone and email, it's very important to establish that relationship with the developers and with Pokemon, there's numerous companies that are involved with Pokemon. There's the Pokemon company, which is based in Japan, and then of course you have Nintendo. Then there's the developers, and there's a lot of other people over there. So we really like to go over there and talk with them and meet with them and just keep those relationships going. And it ensures that we have a quality product every time. And I think with Mystery Dungeon, the new ones, it really shows. I'm really proud to have worked on these games.
Yeah, about a Mystery Dungeon. So I know in this game it's different because you actually play as a Pokemon. Could you kind of explain how that works a little bit?
Absolutely. So in the past games, I like to call them the core series, which is Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Diamond, and Pearl. You were basically a 10-year-old kid that moved into a new region, and you kind of set out basically to help the professor gather information on all the different Pokemon. So